Now, I guess I'm going to make a policy decision, which may already be obvious by my suggesting to the planning commissions and the county council that they address this. And the simple fact is I think we should have more housing for local families. Now, not everybody agrees with that, and that's okay. Not everybody agrees with that. I'm not suggesting that short-term rental conversions is the only way to get housing for local families. That's just one of the pieces, one of the parts. There are many, and I think I've heard just about every one of them, either in a text message, an email, a phone call, or when I'm trying to shop with my family. And that's okay. You know, when people come up to me and say, "Man, I don't want to talk business, but can I ask you this one thing?" And I always say, it's okay. Because you don't know when you're going to run into me again. So this is a coincidence, a chance for you to tell me what you need to tell me. You know, as a government, I say this a lot because it's true. We make group decisions that affect individual people. Let me say that one more time. We make a group decision that involves individual people. So some of you are impacted by this decision more than others. But I'm going to tell you what I said in the beginning. My belief is we need to create more housing for local families. And this became more evident after what happened in August of 2023. This wasn't a knee-jerk reaction to that, as we were being accused of. This was something that should have been done a long time ago. And again, I understand why nobody did it. It's because of what we're going through right now. It's dividing the community in some ways. And that was never the intention. But let me talk a little bit specifics. Maui has the largest concentration of TBRs in the state of Hawaii for the size of our population. We have 15,400 temporary vacation rentals. The Minatoya list, and I won't get into a long history because I know we have other questions. The Minatoya list involves 7,100 of those. Some of those are here in South Maui. Many of them are in West Maui. Some of those 7,100 units should not be converted to long-term. You heard me say that. Some of them should remain as hotels. What happened? So right now, for those of you who own a temporary vacation rental, if you're not in the apartment zone, you have to get a permit. You have to get permission from your neighbors. You have to advise them of what you're going to do. And you got maybe a 2 or 3 year permit to run your temporary vacation rental. If you did it legally, that's how most of them are done, right? To a permit. The Minatoya list were temporary vacation rentals that were allowed in apartment districts, not zoned for this. Richard Minatoya was a deputy corporation counsel who at one time worked for me at the prosecutor's office. He became a corporation counsel. And under his advice, he made a determination to exempt these units, the 7,100 I'm talking about, rather than have them go through a legal battle, rather than having them go to court. So they made a decision at that time in that administration to exempt. An exemption can be taken away. It's not permanent. Some of those buildings, some of those units were built for workforce housing. If you've been on Maui long enough, you'll remember in the 70s and the 80s, when a hotel wanted to build their hotel, the way to get their permit, they had to build housing. You guys have some of those units in Kihei? They were intended for workforce housing, they were built for workforce housing, and they became short-term rentals. Because at some point, they were allowed to be sold to the open market. Over 80% of the temporary vacation rentals on Maui are owned by people who do not live on Maui. Over 80%. Now, what I want to say is we recognize that some of those units built in the apartment zone look like, act like, and behave as hotels, and they should be hotels. But they should be zoned as a hotel. They need to file with the planning commission and say we want our dwelling, our building to be a hotel. And they should do that. And they should be granted that. But they shouldn't be considered apartments if they're acting as hotels. And they should be paying hotel rates as taxes, not apartment rates. But if your building that you own or you bought, and if your realtor didn't tell you what the ministerialist exemption was when you bought it, if that was built to be a workforce housing, my goal is to convert those back to workforce housing. That's the simple answer. Now, because that's what they were intended for, and that's what I needed. By our calculation, there should be around 2,000 of those, not all 7,100. So we can have this fight, and we can decide what's right, what's best. But I've heard many comments. That's my retirement. It's too expensive for local people to live in them. Well, the reason it's too expensive is because it's being used as a short-term rental and not a long-term rental. There are many fees that come along with the short-term rental market that will not exist with a long-term rental. There are many buildings that are on this list. When you look at the people that make up the ownership of that building, there are still people who are owners from the original time that building was made. There are people who rent in that building as long-term, and then there are a mix of short-term. So when people say, these places aren't intended for long-term, local people don't want to live here. Local people are already living in there. And long-term renters are already renting there. Now this question about whether local people should be allowed to live oceanfront? I gotta watch what I say because my team always tells me don't say the first thing that comes to my mind. So I'm gonna filter. I gotta filter while I'm standing here. Yeah, I think local people should be allowed to live on the ocean. That was an odd question, and I think I'm understanding the question. I think what we gotta do, though, everybody, seriously, is to sort through the 7,100 units. If you think you live in a unit that is more designed as a hotel, then please urge your board, urge your owners to seek an amendment or proper zoning and have yourself zoned as a hotel. And then you won't have this problem. This will not be a problem. But if that building was built for workforce housing, then that's what I think it should be. Because that's what we need. How strange is it that we have more housing available for visitors than for the people who live here? I mean, we want visitors. No, I think the third part of the question talks about, TNT and we're 12% of the population. We pay 26% of the TNT to the state of Hawaii. 26% of the TNT they get comes from Maui. So, we're running the numbers, and I can tell you, if this is going to impact our revenue, then we're going to address that revenue like every government does. Our hotels run at about 60% occupancy. 60% occupancy. I think we have enough rooms to accommodate visitors who come. And by the way, the argument that I'm just trying to help hotels, I don't know where that came from. I'm not trying to help anybody except local people who stay here. Now, if it's a coincidence that it helps somebody, then it helps somebody, but that's not the intention. Nor is my intention to hurt any one of you. We can talk about retirements. We can talk about people's tomorrows, or we can talk about local people's todays. And that's what we're doing.